Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Closer. Jade. So what we'll read through today, inshallah, is a recent article by Shaykh Ahmed al-Subai, Hafidhahullah, and it is titled A Reminder about the Sunnah and the Haddaadiyyah. A reminder about the Sunnah and the Haddaadiyyah. So in this brief article, he'll go into some of the differences between the people of Sunnah and the Haddaadiyyah. So what he said or began with, Hafidhahullah, Shaykh Ahmed al-Subai, is that from the main differences between the people of Sunnah, the followers of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and between the Khawarij and the different sects and the political groups, is that which is at the forefront or of most importance for the people of Sunnah is the book and the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah. So the people of Sunnah do not have anything other than this as a source of their religion. As for the people of innovation, so they have certain principles or certain foundations that they establish, that they put ahead of the truth. So from their innovations and from their ahwa, from their desires and their distortions that they bring forward, meaning that the people of innovation bring forward, are these principles or these false foundations of the Haddaadiyyah. So from their principles is that what has been mentioned in the athar, in the narrations, then it is considered a truth and foundation without any restriction, even if that narration is weak or in opposition to what is correct. So again, just to clarify and repeat again, that from the main principles of the Haddaadiyyah is that they cling to the athar, to the narrations, in a way that that narrations are without doubt truth, unrestrictedly, even if those narrations are weak and in opposition to what is correct, meaning in opposition to the texts. Then they utilize these foundations that they have, these false principles, and they attach rulings to it. So because of these principles that they establish from these narrations, even if those narrations are weak, then they use that to make tabdi'. They use that to declare others to be upon bid'ah. And likewise, from their signs or from their characteristics is the claim of the Haddaadiyyah that there is no difference between the Jahmiyyah and between the Asha'ira, for example. And from what they do, what the Haddaadiyyah do, is they lean towards takfir. They lean towards declaring people to be disbelievers. And that they say that the Jahmiyyah, the specific ones from among them, are kuffar, are disbelievers. Each and every individual from among them. So this is from the characteristics of the Haddaadiyyah. And they don't differentiate. They don't make any difference between the statement and the person making the statement. This is from the characteristics of the Haddaadiyyah, that they don't differentiate between the ruling of what is the statement. Is the statement innovation or is it disbelief? And the individual that's making that statement, so they don't make a difference. Likewise, because of these false principles, we find that they even go to the extent that they make takfir. They declare Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, to have disbelieved. Because Ibn Taymiyyah didn't make takfir, didn't declare the disbelief of the Ash'ariyah. And this is following in that chain of takfir from the Khawarij from the early days, both in the past and the present. And we find this from those of the Haddaadiyyah that are open and clear about this methodology of theirs. And the majority of them, they try and hide this characteristic of themselves. They won't openly claim, they won't openly call to their idea that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah was a disbeliever, for example. But he said that this is something that we find among them. And he said even in Kuwait, Shaykh Ahmad Subayr, Hafidhahullah, continued saying, even in our country, Kuwait, there was a man from among them, meaning from among the Haddaadiyyah. And he used to hide his beliefs from the youth. And he used to cause doubts to the students of knowledge that would be around him, and they didn't have clear understanding of these ways of them. So his ideas that he had from the Haddaadiyyah, he entered into some of these students. But all praises due to Allah that it became possible that his ignorance was exposed, basically. His ignorance was exposed to the youth, and due to the sincerity of those youth that were affected by him and their wanting to follow the truth and the Sunnah, they were able to leave him. And what we find is from the praiseworthy characteristics of the people of knowledge is that they will openly say that when somebody makes a mistake. This is from the true characteristics, praiseworthy characteristics of the people of knowledge, that if they find somebody that makes a mistake, they make that clear. They try and correct the mistake. But as for the people of innovation, such as the Haddaadiyyah, we find that they resort to making takfir of one another. The people of innovation and desires, they follow the way of the Khawarij in making takfir of each other. As for the people of Sunnah, then they refute each other. They do refutations trying to correct each other. And there is not anyone from the people of Sunnah except that he is able to be refuted. There is no one who is above being corrected. So we find that if, for example, moving on, that the people of knowledge, meaning the true people of knowledge, the people of Sunnah, that if there's an issue, an issue from the issues, they might change their opinion about it due to their ijtihad, due to the understanding that they gain. They might change their opinion. But as for the people of innovation, then they change their colors and they'll jump around between different stances in order to bring about whatever benefits they want at that time. So the people of knowledge, they change their opinions based upon ijtihad, due to the research that they do, due to the truth that they learn about. due to their sincere intentions and following the proofs. So the person of knowledge, he continues to try and increase himself in knowledge to be closer to the truth and to always be returning back from any mistake that he makes. As for the people of bid'ah, the people of innovation, then we find that they change their stances and replace their stances due to the changes of their own desires and the changes of what they see a benefit. Whichever side that they see a benefit in siding with, that's what they do. We find from the ways of the people of innovations in our times that we see from the likes of them and the examples of what happened with the Sururiya. The Sururiya, the followers of Surur in Saudi, that we found that they would search for proofs to support their innovation of takfir. So they would look in the books of the Sunnah and in some of the statements of the scholars that followed after Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, and they would try and pick and choose certain statements to use as a proof for their making takfir of the Muslims. Even though, and they would abandon the clear speech of the scholars, the clear speech of the scholars that would be against takfir of the Muslims, they would ignore that speech, and they would rather pick and try and choose different statements that they could use for their benefit as a support for the takfir that they were trying to make against the rulers and other than them from the Muslims. Likewise, in some of the books of the Sunnah, they would take certain parts that would fit their desires to try and make takfir of the rulers that were not completely ruling by what Allah revealed. So if any ruler was ruling by other than what Allah revealed, then they would make a direct takfir of these rulers. And they would do this, meaning the people of innovation and desires, they would take this stance while completely abandoning what the companions were upon and what the tabi'een were upon and what the Sunnah had as proof in it. Likewise, we find that the Haddaadiyyah and other than them from the people of innovations, they expanded their bad intentions and their ignorance and their misguidance to spread their attacks. Of course, their baseless attacks that did not have correct evidence to support it against the Imams of the Sunnah, such as Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, and they would accuse him falsely of irja. And this transgression, then this is from what that following of desires necessitates and what it leads to. So whoever goes and resorts to opposing the truth, like Allah has mentioned in the Quran, Allah the Mighty Allah the Mighty and Majestic had mentioned and repeated in the Quran about what happened with Ahl Kitab, the people of the book, that they would fall into bagyan bainahum, that they would make transgression between them. So transgressing between each other and against each other, then this comes about from following one's desires. So following the Sunnah, following the truth, it does not have in it difficulty or unclarity, but rather to follow the truth and follow the Sunnah, this requires truthful Iman and truthful religion, and that you submit and you follow the truth and the religion with strength, clinging to it. So whoever has in their clinging to the truth and the Sunnah a weakness, and whoever has in him desires, and shaitan is trying to pull him towards transgression and going beyond bounds, then this could lead him to what Allah had mentioned in this verse. So Allah mentioned in the verse, قل إنما حرم ربي الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن والإثم والبغي بغير الحق وأن تشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. So he said, ordering to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say, indeed what my Lord has made haram is the fawahish, the filthy sins, what is apparent from them and what is hidden, and sin and transgression without truth, without right, and that you associate partners with Allah in what He did not legislate, and that you speak about Allah with what you don't know. And Allah speaks the truth and He guides to the correct path. Now, so that's the end of the article by Shaykh Ahmed al-Subayy, Hafidhahullah. If anyone has any specific questions related to the topic of the article, we can try and take that, inshallah. Just click the raise hand button. Abu Amina.
وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
يا شيخ.
Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair.
ما شاء الله. أخي, so the Haddaadiyyah, Shaykh Hussein, Hafidhahullah, that one of the characteristics is them making takfir of the Muslims or the rulers. But however, do that also for like if of making tabdiyyah? Is this part of the characteristics as well as saying that the person who's someone who fell into a mistake, like he's an innovator or he's not Salafi no more?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things mentioned in the beginning of the article, that he mentioned that they'll take different narrations and apply it to people based upon their own understanding, their own desires. So they'll take, for example, they might find different narrations of how the Salaf were against the people of innovation or against people that sat with the people of innovation or things like that. And even if the statement is not authentic, so he must be an innovator, so he makes tabdiyyah of the person like that.
Okay, you went off a little bit.
Okay, so basically they'll take narrations from the Salaf, whether they're authentic or even if they're not authentic, and they'll try and make comparisons what they see now, and they say that because this Imam had the stance between such and such specific person, that means I need to take this stance with you.
Okay.
You know, so they try and take matters in their own hands rather than sticking with the actual proofs.
No. Shukran.
Afwan. So one of the things that, just to clarify that a bit further, that when the scholars, when they speak about the Haddaadiyyah, one of the things that they say describing them is that they go to extremes in following the narrations to the extent that they abandon the proofs. And they'll find certain narrations and think, okay, our religion is to cling to the narrations, but they'll cling to that, even if the proofs from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah are different than that.
No.
No?
No.
And the chain just goes on and continues. When I say the chain, meaning they'll make tabdi of somebody because of what they think they understand from different narrations. And then if you don't agree with them in that tabdi', then they make tabdi of you also.
No.
Right? And that's one of the angles of why they made takfir of Ibn Taymiyyah. They say that Ibn Taymiyyah, he didn't make takfir of the Ash'ira. So because they say that both the Haddaadiyyah, they say that both the Jahmiyyah and the Ash'ira are kuffar because of their bid'ah, then because Ibn Taymiyyah didn't make takfir of the Ash'ira, that means Ibn Taymiyyah is kafir.
نعم شكرا.
Afwan Akhi. Jay, I'll just see. No? Okay. So Brother Abdul Mubin, he said, he asked for clarity about the point about how the Haddaadiyyah, they don't make a difference between a statement or an action and the one making the statement or the action. As for Ahl Sunnah, then we clearly make a difference between the person who does an action or makes a statement and the ruling upon that action or statement itself. So for example, if someone, they, let's say, if there's an innovation, the people of Sunnah, we say that this act, this deed is a bid'ah. It's an innovation, it's haram. But not everyone that does that innovation, we don't declare him to be an innovator. We don't declare somebody to be an innovator just because he made a statement or did an action. Why? Because we have to make sure first that the hujjah is established, that the proofs are established, and there's nothing preventing that proof, that hujjah being established. Maybe, so for example, somebody celebrating the Prophet ﷺ's birthday. If somebody grew up thinking that this is what you're supposed to do to get closer to Allah, and they're ignorant, then we don't say that they are an innovator. Right? This is a clear difference between the people of Sunnah and the Haddaadiyyah. That the Haddaadiyyah would say, no, anybody that does bid'ah, they're an innovator. Likewise, even in affairs of kufr, we make a difference that we say such and such action. And one of the examples is Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, that he said, we don't make takfir of the people that are doing tawaf around the grave of Badawi in Egypt. Why? Because those people are ignorant. That's all that they know. So if you're making tawaf around a grave, seeking closeness to Allah, this is shirk. Right? This is shirk. But not everyone that does that are we going to declare them to be a mushrik. Is that clear? Yep. Okay. Barakallahu fikum. Okay. So no other questions have been raised. So inshallah, I'll continue next week. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Take care, brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.